Today on Steelers Talk, I'm going to break down 6 adjustments that the Pittsburgh Steelers can make here in Week 4 to make their team better immediately. I think these 6 changes can make this team better to different degrees, but I think that there are certain things that the Steelers can still do during the season. They're still in very much the figuring out who they are phase of the season. I think these 6 things can help this team get better right now. But before we get into the content today, guys, make sure you click that subscribe button. Go down there in the comments section and get us started. What is an adjustment that you think the Steelers should make this week as they prepare to take on the Minnesota Vikings in Dublin, Ireland? Let me know your answer down there in the comments section. Now, before we start here, I do want to acknowledge some good adjustments that the Steelers did make last week. And all I keep hearing on Steelers Twitter is this coaching staff refuses, apparently, to make any adjustments, and they just keep banging their heads against the wall. But they actually did make some adjustments last week that I think they deserve credit for. Let's take a look at those. Starting Cole Holcomb over Peyton Wilson. All right, Wilson still played, but it was more in a rotational role, and Holcomb had more than 50% of the linebackers' snaps on Sunday versus the New England Patriots. And especially on early downs, it looked a lot better from a run defense standpoint. Holcomb was a lot more physical than Wilson was. That was a really good move by the Pittsburgh Steelers coaching staff. Then Jabril Peppers played more and Juan Thornhill played less. Now, I kind of wish that Jordan Clark was the guy that played less as opposed to Juan Thornhill, but getting Peppers into the lineup, he had an over 90 PFF grade. PFF grades are not gospel, but he certainly had a good game, forced a fumble, was really good against the run. He's going to be a menace for the Steelers defense this year. Then Derek Harmon debuted and made a positive impact. Was it a perfect debut? No, but he is a rookie, and you can tell that he is disruptive. You can tell that he brings a good amount of strength to the table and size. He's over 310 pounds, all right? So this is certainly someone that I think is going to be helping out on the interior defensive line and help out this Steelers run game this year. And then, hey, they actually fed Jaylen Warren, all right? Like they said that they were going to, and they were true to their word of, there wasn't a ton of touches to go around, but the touches they did dish out, they gave a majority of those to Jaylen Warren, and he made the most of those, in my opinion, on film. Now, hopefully, Pittsburgh can take those adjustments and make a couple even more tweaks here heading forward to this week when we go to Dublin to take on the Minnesota Vikings. Like I said at the beginning of today's show, I have 6 potential changes that I would consider if I were Mike Tomlin and the Steelers coaching staff. So let's start here on the defensive side of the ball. And something that I would do is try to get quarterbacks guessing on earlier downs, all right? Because I think right now on early downs, quarterbacks have a little bit too easy of answers, and we kind of talked about it on yesterday's show, but kind of the gist of Mike Tomlin's defensive philosophy is they're going to play pretty static on early downs as long as the opposing offense is ahead of the sticks and on schedule. They're going to play cover 1 man or they're going to play cover 3, and they're not really going to throw anything out there like a disguise or a post-snap rotation, and they're going to kind of hope that there's a negative play, whether that's the pass rush getting a sack, whether that's a TFL, whether that's a penalty on the offense. And then once the opposing offense gets off schedule, or once they get into third down, or when you get into crunch time and maybe it's the final drive, that's when the Steelers bring out the crazy fire zone blitzes and the rotations and the non-traditional Tampas. That's when the Steelers defense gets creative, is when they want to get off the field. Now, obviously, some of those rotations and stuff haven't worked because the Steelers currently have the worst 3rd and 4th down defense in the National Football League. But I think that part of getting off the field on 3rd and 4th is to avoid 3rd and 4th and short. And I don't think the Steelers have done a good enough job of that to this point in the NFL season. I think part of the reason for that is that teams know what the Steelers are going to do on early downs, and I just want Pittsburgh to get after it a little bit more. Try and, take the attack to the offense a little bit more on those early downs, and I think an easy way to do that is just to mix things up sometimes. And, you can still show that kind of quote-unquote static cover 1 or cover 3 look pre-snap, but then you can throw a post-snap rotation at the end of it there and just do it a couple of times. Make the quarterback make sure and, kind of put it in the back of his mind that, okay, they're showing cover 1 or cover 3 here, but they might be rotating to something else, and I have to confirm it post-snap. It just seems like these quarterbacks are getting rid of the football really quickly because they just know what coverages the Steelers are going to be in on early downs. And I think a good way to avoid 3rd and 4th and short and try and get these teams into 3rd and long situations more often is to be able to kind of keep them off guard there on those early down snaps. Then another adjustment that I would make on defense is I would blitz Jalen Ramsey more, and I cannot stress this enough. I've said this on multiple shows so far this year. When they got Jalen Ramsey, guys, I really expected him to be Mike Hilton on steroids. And if you guys remember the Mike Hilton era here in Pittsburgh, like they would blitz Mike Hilton a ton, and opposing offenses had to really account for him. Jalen Ramsey has not really been used in that way yet. He's blitzed a couple of times, but certainly not as much as I thought he was going to. But I think that if you really make it a priority to put Ramsey in a position where he could blitz in a lot of different situations, offenses are going to have to respect that, and they're going to have to account for what Jalen Ramsey is on the field at all times, and that can open up some really great opportunities on the backside for someone like TJ Watt. If you put Jalen Ramsey in the slot on the opposite side of Watt, and they're worried about Ramsey, you could really do some fun creative stuff with stunts and twists and loops with TJ to be able to scheme him open, and I just think it opens up a whole lot of pass rushing opportunities if the offense is worried about the blitz from Jalen Ramsey. It doesn't mean that you blitz him all the time, but it does mean that, it can open up some more opportunities for this pass rush to get home and get quick pressures. Also, Ramsey can contribute in run defense. All right, he's extremely stout for a corner, especially a nickel corner. So if you want him to set the edge from a nickel blitz, you can absolutely do that, and you can almost run your 3-4 base defense with Jalen Ramsey almost as like a pseudo outside linebacker from the nickel. They used Mike Hilton in that way, and their run defense when Hilton was here as the slot corner was some of the best in the National Football League. So I think that it's a really missed opportunity here for the Steelers to just use Ramsey in coverage. I want them to use him in a variety of different ways, and I want him to be an X factor that opposing offenses have to account for on every single snap, pre-snap and also post-snap. So that's what I want them to do with Jalen Ramsey. Then Chuck Clark, I should say. I want Jordan Clark off the field more than Juan Thornhill. Okay, Thornhill certainly not perfect as a player, but at least he's aggressive. At least he's going after the football. Like Chuck Clark dropped 2 potential interceptions against the Patriots. The first one, was right to him. A guy fell down and it should have been caught. Now, it would have been illegal touching anyway on the Steelers, and the Patriots would have gotten a first down, the whole 9 yards there. But still, you're dropping an easy interception. And then the other one that he dropped, it was a poor pass from Drake May, and it was actually that Yankee concept that the Steelers have been losing on the first 2 weeks, and he was not very quick to cut the underneath crosser, which is why it was wide open, but Drake May missed it, and then, of course, Chuck Clark can't make the catch. So, I just don't think that Clark has played particularly well through the first 3 weeks. I think he's a backup level player, and I think Juan Thornhill is probably a step above him. So I would play him more than Clark, but hopefully Deshaun Elliott can get back soon, because I don't think Thornhill or Clark are necessarily high-end players, but I do think Jabril Peppers' addition to this defense, along with Deshaun Elliott being injected back into this unit, can really make one of the best safety duos in the National Football League. Elliott is super instinctive. He's a terrific tackler. You can do a lot of fun things with both Deshaun Elliott and Jabril Peppers as your starting safety duo, and I'm looking forward to seeing what these two guys look like in the starting lineup. But like I said, guys, I would rather see Thornhill than Clark out there. Thornhill had less than 40% of the snaps last Sunday, and Clark had the most snaps out of any safety on the Steelers. I don't want to see that again. I think that's another adjustment that this team should make, and hopefully they do. Then we get to the defensive line, and I would start Daniel Ekuale at nose tackle, guys. Going over the film this week, I put out my film takeaways yesterday. I didn't mention Ekuale, but I kind of regret that because Daniel did a really good job two-gapping from the nose tackle alignment. Much better than Keanu Benton has to start this season. So what I would do, guys, is I would play him at the nose because he is a very active run defender and two-gapper. And, that is very important for somebody that plays in the middle of your defense. Keanu Benton, as I've been saying for years at this point, is not a two-gapping nose tackle. He's more of a one-gap type of penetrator, and I still think he can be used in that way. But also Derek Harmon showed some really good things against the run. And when it was Cam Hayward, Daniel Ekuale, and Derek Harmon out there, that was probably the best trio of defensive linemen that we've seen out there this season. So that's who I would start heading into this week, guys. I would put Cam Hayward at the 3-tech as he always has been playing. Daniel Quale would be the nose tackle that can two-gap, be that active run defender, and then Derek Harmon as your very disruptive 5 technique. And then on early down rotation, I would put Y.A. Black in there. He can play defensive end. He can play nose tackle if you need him to. If Hayward, Quale, or Harmon need a break, Black can go in there on early downs and be a solid run defender. And then Keanu Benton can be the passing down rotation guy, where if Derek Harmon needs a little bit of a break, or if you want to go to your nickel fronts where you have 4 down linemen, Keanu Benton can be a disruptive presence. He's just not a very good run defender at this point, guys. So personally, I would take him off the field on early downs, put Daniel Quale out there to make this run defense a bit more stout, and then put Keanu Benton out there with fresh legs and passing down situations where he can affect the quarterback and affect the pocket the way that he can. So pick your nose tackle down there in the comment section. If you had to pick between these 4 individuals, who are you putting as the starting nose tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week? Type KB if you're sticking with Keanu Benton. Type DE if you agree with me and you're putting Daniel Quale in the middle of this defense. Type DH if you want to put the rookie Derek Harmon in that spot. Or type YB if you want Y.A. Black, the rookie out of Iowa, to be the starting nose tackle. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today. While I'm talking about our sponsor, go ahead and let me know who you want to start at nose tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today, where you guys can go to chatsports.com/AR8 to pick up an Aaron Rodgers Steelers jersey today. I think Rodgers has actually played pretty darn well through the first 3 weeks. He's tied for the league lead in passing touchdowns right now. I think he's made the most of kind of a rocky situation to start here with the pass protection, with receivers not getting open down the field. I think Rodgers has mostly been doing what he's needed to do to help this team get victories. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do as the season goes on. If you're with me on that, you want an Aaron Rodgers jersey for a great price, and you want to help out the channel, we get part of the proceeds when you use our link, chatsports.com/AR8. So if you're planning on getting a Rodgers jersey, help out the channel while you're at it. Again, chatsports.com/AR8. That link is down in the comments and description of today's show if you want to help us out. Now we move on to the offensive adjustments that I would make, which first and foremost, guys, we got to get DK Metcalf more involved. He's only getting like 3 or 4 targets a game, and for somebody that's making over $30 million per season, that's got to be more. He's got to be a bigger part of the game plan, and I think that the way you do that is you get him the football over the middle with a head of steam so that he can run after the catch, because I really think that is the best thing about his game is his ability to run with the ball in space when he has a head of steam. And right now, Pittsburgh is using DK Metcalf like they used George Pickens, like a true 50-50 ball threat down the sideline. And, George was certainly really good at that, and DK can do that. He's caught a couple fades for touchdowns. He's a big body. He can win in those situations, but I just think he's so limited in that role. If you're just going to run him on streaks and fades all day, especially with teams sitting in as many too high safety coverages as they are against the Steelers right now, there's just not a lot of opportunities to throw the ball deep, and I think Pittsburgh should be using DK more like A.J. Brown compared to, George Pickens, because Pickens is a much better contested catch winner down the sideline than DK is. And, I kind of compare DK's skill set to A.J. Brown's, where they've got a little bit of a limited route tree. I think A.J.'s route tree is a little bit more expansive, but they're both really big bodies. They're both excellent after the catch. They're both really tough to bring down. And you guys can see here the former Ole Miss teammates, very similar builds, and DK's actually a little bit bigger than A.J. Brown is. And I was really hoping that when they traded for DK Metcalf, that was Arthur Smith saying, I want DK to be my next A.J. Brown, because A.J. was an absolute beast running those drift concepts, running those slants, all those shallow crosses in that Tennessee Titans offense all those years back under Arthur Smith. And I think that is the role that they should be using DK Metcalf in, and we just haven't seen that through the first 3 weeks. And when we have seen that, when he did catch a shallow cross in week 1 versus the New York Jets, what happened? He went on like a 20-yard rip of a run. He's had some really great moments in the screen game after the catch as well. And, when I watch DK Metcalf play, guys, when he really gets going and he gets ahead of steam over the middle of the field and you get the ball in his hands, he is so hard to bring down because he is so fast in terms of his top-end speed. He's like a 4.3 speed guy, but he's also massive, all right? He's almost almost as big as a tight end. And you better believe a big man like that running as fast as he does, like, there's no DB on the planet that wants to tackle him in open space. And you want to wear down an opposing team's secondary, that's how you do it. You force them to tackle DK Metcalf with a head of steam multiple times a game. And I think that is the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers should be using DK Metcalf. So that is a major adjustment that I would be making if I'm offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What is your concern level for DK Metcalf at this point? Put it on a scale of 1, meaning not worried at all, he's going to be just fine, to 10, meaning this is not good enough right now, he's got to play a lot better. My final adjustment that I would make heading into week 4 if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers is get wide receivers running pre-snap. All right, get them going with pre-snap motion. I don't think there's been enough of that to start this season from Arthur Smith and the Steelers offense. And I think that there's a lot of ways to manufacture space, because you look at the way defenses are playing the Steelers right now, it's a lot of press jam coverage. You know, they don't want DK Metcalf to get that head of steam that I'm talking about. They want to stop his momentum because they know once he gets that momentum, he ain't slowing down. So a lot of teams are press jamming DK Metcalf, and they're really doing it with impunity, and the Steelers need to find a way to kind of manufacture space for DK Metcalf to kind of prevent those press jam situations. Good way to do that is with cheetah motions. The Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins popularized this in Miami. Sean McVay and the Rams utilize it a lot as well, which is that you get a wide receiver full speed running at the snap, and then he turns upfield, and then, you know, you can't really press jam a player in that scenario because they're already got that head of steam. So if you're looking to get DK Metcalf going and make him more of an unstoppable presence, it doesn't have to be a dagger route. It can be a whole bunch of different stuff that you can do from these types of cheetah motions. And by the way, you can do it with Calvin Austin III as well. If you get Calvin Austin III going with these speed routes, I mean, just look at the way that it's affected Tyreek Hill in that Miami Dolphins offense. Like, he put up historic numbers in that Dolphins offense over the last several years. I think that Calvin Austin with his speed can be used in very similar ways. And then even Roman Wilson, if you want to get Roman Wilson involved, this is a fantastic way to get him going because he's a 4.3 speed guy as well. But we haven't really seen that. We've seen a very static Steelers passing game to this point, and it's allowing defenses to just press jam these receivers, and then, you know, it kind of jacks up the timing of the play, and then Rodgers has to check it down. I think that these kinds of motions can certainly help things out. And then I would also love to see some muddy bunch looks, which is kind of when you send a receiver in motion into a stack formation, creating what is referred to as a dirty bunch, which kind of messes up the man match rules for the defense. We've seen the Steelers get burned on this a couple of times, namely versus the Kansas City Chiefs last year on Christmas, where they put a guy in motion into a bunch, and it kind of leads to some blown assignments on defense. So I think that there are some creative ways that the Steelers can get this passing game going. I think there's some creative ways to get DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, and Roman Wilson involved in the passing game scheme, and they're just not doing that. They're kind of just standing static. They're not really putting in a lot of motions. I know Aaron Rodgers likes to be able to make changes at the line of scrimmage and kind of be the orchestrator of the offense, but sometimes Arthur Smith, I think, is going to have to put his foot down here and say, on this play, we're running this motion because for this reason, DK Metcalf needs to get open. We have to avoid press jam situations. And I think Rodgers is smart enough to understand that reasoning. So hopefully Arthur Smith, Aaron Rodgers in this offense can find more creative ways to get DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, and maybe even Roman Wilson the football more in the weeks to come. So make sure you guys get down there in the comment section. That'll be it for today's show. But if you made it to the end of today's program, make sure you type real one down there in the comment section so that we can give you some love down there in the comments later today. And then also, guys, we're going to be putting out another video later in the day. It is Tomlin Tuesday. Mike Tomlin will be taking the podium later today. So make sure you click that subscribe button and join us later this afternoon, where we're going to be breaking down all the latest injury updates on guys like Deshaun Elliott, Joey Porter Jr., and more that Mike Tomlin provides for us, and then any other news and rumors that comes out today regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers. So appreciate your guys' support. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.